In this episode, we go over everything you need to know, part 2, and we go into a little bit more detail into models and console types.
Welcome to Trident Wargaming, a podcast dedicated to all aspects of tabletop wargaming. Your hosts are Bill and Andy.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Trident Wargaming. This is episode 22. And it's Horus Heresy, everything you need to know to get started, part 2. I'm your host, Bill.
And I'm your other host, Andy.
And we're just going to kind of jump right into it. I guess, kick things off, we'll talk some hobby progress, what we've been up to the last little bit here. Myself, I can go first. It's been a lot of work on my word bearers on the side, just trying to get some units built up and primed, ready for painting. I recently finished off my Margal tainted Contemptor Dreadnought, and then I've ended up getting 2 10-man squads of Ashen Circle, all built up, ready to go. Also ordered some bits so I can throw some power axes on my guys, a couple of them anyways, because, you know, AP3 only goes so far. So, and then if you've been peeking on the Instagram at all, I actually was able to get my 10-man squad of Galvor back all finished off, which was actually a big load off of my shoulders. I was kind of unsure how it was going to start. I ended up, getting 10 Galvor back, and unfortunately they only have 5 sculpts, but they're amazing sculpts, but only 5, so I really wanted to try and make sure I had a 10-man squad that was unique, and sifting through all my bits that I've been slowly procuring over time, a bunch of Chaos Space Marine bits from 40k, specifically the Possessed kits. So they came in pretty clutch, as I was able to use pretty much almost all of the bits I had to make these guys look as unique as possible. So
that's pretty cool. That was pretty cool. They look pretty good. You got some pretty good feedback from people on it. So that's awesome. Yeah,
I was happy about that for sure. It definitely was nice to get all that stuff kind of prepped up and ready. Again, like really pushing hard on my word bearer stuff, getting all the what is it now? The saber upgrades, the autocannons and the Volkite Saker and all the pintle mounted stuff. Getting that all primed and ready to get painted as well. Really just trying to, get everything onto the painting table, because it's nice to be able to spray everything once you're in the mode, right? Like, especially airbrushing that white ink. I use that Liquidex Professional Acrylic top down, and I get all the highlights. And once you're kind of on a roll, it doesn't take very long to crank out through 4 or 5 different squads. So looking forward to getting that project there.
It's like a can of Pringles. Once you pop, you can't stop, right?
Well, this is true.
No, it's pretty cool. Pretty cool. Now, I have a question for you though on your word bearers.
Hit me.
Have you gotten a collection of books and candles and stuff? Are you doing that route? Are you going that route? Or
I have books, lots of different books, scripture and whatnot to put on everything once it's all ready. As far as candles go, I've seen a lot of cool different conversions and kits with candles and all sorts of stuff. I would love to do it. I'll be, perfectly honest. This is full disclosure. Everyone lean in real close. Get comfortable. Mm-hmm. I'm too lazy to green stuff. You heard it here first on Trident. I really don't want to make green stuff candles.
You might be able to 3D print them.
I am thinking of someone right now. Lukash, if you can hear me, I'm thinking of you. To see if perhaps, you could print me out 100 candles. Be great. So
nice.
We'll see how that goes. Currently, actually, he's printing me off a bunch of Zone Mortalis / Sector Mechanicus looking bases. 60 mils for my dreads, so I could get everything matching with that, arcology zone type hive kind of basing theme I've got going on for the word bears themselves. So,
which looks absolutely great. And I know you had a lot of guys commenting on those bases and stuff too, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's amazing how when we like start or do new miniatures or paint them up, how we never really go the same way with the previous base, right?
No, it's always different.
So I know with myself too, it's the same thing. It's something I gotta try different, or a different theme to it or whatever. So, but looks really cool, that's for sure. And gives it a good feel too, right?
It does.
It'll look great on your boards once your boards get going too, right?
Yes, those bases, the whole army is basically inspired by my Zone Mortalis / Arcology setup I want to have done. So Andy and I here can clash on Kelth, and we can watch that beast burn.
Never.
And,
didn't happen.
It's going to be great. Darren, I'll get you a set of red and black pom-poms. You can cheer on the word bears, your favorite legion.
He's going to curse you for that. Oh, that's good stuff. But yeah, those will be good matches, and we will be able to do that soon enough, right? Probably
exactly.
later on this year when your army's all done up.
Yep.
For sure. We'll have to get that rolling and post pictures on the Instagram and Facebook page and whatnot.
Oh yeah.
As for myself, kind of been bouncing around a little bit. As Bill knows, like I was actually finished off the White Scar little project that I did there, and then I was thinking about going on with the Salamanders and started building stuff, the troops and whatnot. But then kind of had a change of heart and back in the saddle with the White Scars again.
Yeah.
So just currently working on some more bikers, some outriders, cleaning them up and getting them all assembled and ready for painting. Different stages. I like to separate the bikers from the actual bike when I paint. So, put them on toothpicks kind of thing, right?
Well, subassembly goes a long way, and if you're not subassembling a little bit with some of those models, like bikes and the just general with models riding other models or in land speeders and stuff, you heathen, split them up.
But I got that on the go, and there's a couple of Ultramarines that I'm going back over and just touching them up. And pretty much just, the White Scars, just getting more units kind of built and getting them ready for painting. So it's definitely, it was an exciting army to start up, and I really, really, really liked how everything turned out. So instead of kind of delaying it, I figured let's keep rolling with it and get it done. So that's kind of where I'm at. Hit the throttle, would you say? Hit the throttle, second gear. You betcha. After I made that Praetor, I just kind of started looking for maybe other character bits, right? Like I want to have a shaman. Oh yeah. Not so much, the psyker. Have some kind of custom characters to have as my own and kind of fit the army and have that look to them, right? So it'll be interesting to make those characters and have a lot of fun with them. And then just getting more experience with painting white as well, which the airbrush has saved many, many headaches with that.
Oh yeah. Oh, for sure.
So, and then of course, I mentioned before, so literally every biker of mine in that army will have a different pattern on their bike and even on their greaves and stuff like that. So
It's pretty legit.
It'll be a bit of work, but it's a lot of fun, and when it's all done, I just love the look of it. It's going to be. Darren might come at me at this one. They might actually be my favorite army, more so than I know, more so than the Ultramarines. So,
Heresy here first. This is. This is a breaking revelation.
So for the con.
Speaking of for the con, you're currently started Saturnine audiobook, is that right?
Yes.
Yes, so you'll be getting a lot of inspiration coming up in that book. I'll leave it there because we're actually going to be having an episode later on talking about everything Siege of Terra from Solar War up into including Mortis. So stay tuned for that. We're going to be kind of going through it, and it'll be the sorry spoilers. If you don't want to hear spoilers, don't click on that video because there'll be a lot. So, but yeah, no, it's nice. It's nice that there's still continuous progress with the hobby, moving through. Even, after we talked about our summer plans and terrain and stuff, terrain's still happening. I'm still looking at, getting the board finished up and starting to go through stuff. I got a lot of totes. So, but it's, I still got the army in the back of my mind. I still want to keep progressing it and keep it moving forward because,
oh, for sure.
Once you kind of get in that momentum, you got to kind of strike while the iron's hot, right? We haven't hit any weird burnout yet because, we have been keeping it fresh with our different hobby pledges and jumping from system to system, which has been refreshing. It's nice to kind of autopilot a little bit on terrain as well because terrain it's a little more relaxing, right? A lot of airbrush work, a lot of washes, some sponging and stuff. So it's a different change of pace for sure. Very little brush work. So that's nice.
Yeah, we might maybe we'll have to think about it and talk about it later, but maybe do a specific challenge maybe for our local here.
Oh,
instead of just like our last one there, we had a couple troops in HQ, right? But maybe we do something with the vehicles or something like that,
Yeah, oh, for sure.
To inspire the boys and girls play.
That's right.
And paint. So, but yeah, we'll check that out later, I guess, eh?
Yes. I guess, kicking into the meat and potatoes here. Purpose of this episode. So why are you listening to this episode? This is the part 2. We're hoping that at the end of the part 1 video that we put out, you've got your books. You've been kind of reading the books. You have a decent grasp on what you've kind of read, and it's time to start playing games. It's time to take that first step, and there is a lot of content to chew through in those army books and the Legion books, depending on faction. The easiest first step is basically okay. I guess we'll keep it Astartes for right now because there's it can get pretty wild as we continue. But for strictly speaking Astartes, you want your Legion. Where to go? Like, what is the best way to start, I guess, kicking into the game? And I would always recommend starting off with the classic Crusade Force Org, which is 95% of the games you'll probably play are going to use this Force Org. Which is a standard 1 HQ 2 troop requirement. Pretty basic. A lot of the other systems have this particular compulsory choices as well. So the easiest way, in my personal opinion, is to get your 1 Centurion kind of thing and 2 tactical squads. Very plain Jane, very easy. You can playtest and proxy a lot of stuff as long as you have, 21 models to start, essentially. You can play test, if you want to do tactical Marines or assault Marines or breachers. You can really kind of start to see how they interact, because there's a lot of different rules just within, those 3 choices themselves.
Yeah, there's a lot of, like, when you're starting out, there's so many units to look at and pick, right? And I just find that starting off, like you said, with the HQ and 2 troops, that's a good place to start and start experimenting with these other units.
Yeah.
As you're looking through the book, right? And there's a good opportunity there before you fully commit to, actually getting the miniatures. There's a perfect opportunity to play test things.
Yeah. Oh,
right?
For sure.
And of course it's awesome when you have your buddies that are involved with it, like your close gaming buddies, and everybody's trying something different and bouncing these units off of each other, like we did in the past. Like, I remember when we first started, like, I remember I didn't even pick a legion to start with, right? It was just, I picked a whole bunch of generic units and just tried it out.
Yep.
Right? So, like, it's a good place to be. It's a good place to start. Get some experience with the units and see how things play out, and then start introducing other units.
Well, that's always the biggest thing, right? Is get comfortable with that core, because no lie, you're going to play with that core like all the time. Your 1 HQ 2 troop is pretty much going to be like a commonplace in your army, depending on what rite of war you want to use. Sometimes you need to take 3 troops, so may as well get comfortable with taking them. Some people do consider them like attacks, but considering they're your main source of scoring and usually get left alone for most of the game, they're very much underrated in terms of, like, when you're looking at them as an opponent. So always keep those tactical Marines in the back of your head, or whatever scoring units he has in the back of your head, because they'll hide all game and then turn 5 pop out and steal that objective and toss you the game, right? So it's, they're deceptive.
Yeah, each unit, no matter what you take, like, they have those specific roles, right? So never underestimate the units that your opponent takes or where he's positioned them, stuff like that. Like, and we'll talk about later, but I know just recently, like, Bill, you pulled a sneaky one on me with your assault Marines.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Kind of got moved into position where I've kind of lost track of them, and then later down the road, it's like they literally kind of cost me the game. You know what I mean? So, yeah. When you're looking at these units, just think of their roles. Think of where you're going to put them. Think of where you're going to use them. That kind of thing, and you'll figure out what which ones you like, which ones are effective, and that kind of thing, right? So yeah, I guess, like, beyond the HQ and 2 troop choices that you decide to take.
Yep.
You have your heavy supports, you have your elites, your fast attack. Other HQs, and also you have super heavies as well, which that's a little bit more down the road.
It is. It just kind of reminded me, before we jump too far ahead, when we were talking about playtesting, I do want to share something that one of our buddies here locally did. Like, this is early days, like, no one's really got an army, and our buddy Dan, who was clever in thinking this up, basically bought a bunch of the pink styrofoam, and had, right, like, 2-inch block, and then bought a lot of the like little 1/2-inch sheets, and he ended up tracing no shit, like, he ended up tracing Rhino chassis, okay, measurement wise, like height, everything, even the shape of like, you know, the actual like side like profile, and he made it out of this pink styrofoam, and like had like styrofoam balls that you could cut in half with dowels and stick on top of like predator turrets and whirlwinds and Scorpius and like anything you could think of, honestly. And that was huge in playtesting with our armies, because like, you know, these like plastic rhinos are like $42 to $45 a piece, depending on what kits you're buying. I myself, I abhor buying a rhino kit. I think it's such a waste. Like, buy whirlwind, buy a predator, buy razorback, buy something, but not just a rhino kit, right? Like, you want to kind of max out your dollars there. But yeah, it was super, super helpful. So never underestimate, you know, making just homemade stuff just to get you through to see if you actually like that squadron of tanks.
Yeah, your play testing time.
Yeah. I know he was using it a little bit for his armored breakthrough style of army, right? It's a lot easier to spend an afternoon and build, you know, 12, 15 tanks out of the styrofoam, glue them all together, and play test them for a week or two. Be like, yeah, I actually like it, and then start committing dollars, because that's the last thing I never want to hear is, oh man, I ended up, you know, spending all this money on this squad and I don't even use it. It's like, oh yeah, that's the worst.
And I mean, we're all guilty of that, but I was just gonna say, like, the worst thing is you know, you end up going and buying this fancy tank, and it's just this paperweight for your army lists on your shelf.
Yeah.
Right. You never use it. Like, I have a heavy support squad for my Ultramarines. It's only a 5-man, you know, but I don't use it in my games.
No.
So they kind of just, the last can team sits there, right? So like Bill was saying, with all that stuff, you know, if you have stuff to proxy just to get you through trying things out, trying units, seeing what you like, and before you actually dump in that major coin for a lot of these units, you know, by all means, especially when you're playing with your friends, if your buddies are okay with it, yeah, go ahead, do it. Yeah, play test things, try it out. It's some of the best. Like, you'll have fun time doing it, and then once you get to that point where you're ready to, you know, commit and get what you want, then at least you know, okay, I'll be using this unit, right? So
yeah, it's definitely a surefire way to really make sure you're happy with what you're about to buy. I think that's the biggest thing that just never gets stated enough, is usually most people are going to be okay with you playtesting stuff, especially if you're coming up in a group with your friends, or if you and your friends are just starting out all fresh. I highly encourage, playtest as much as you can, proxy as much as you can, just for now, just to get the basics and everything down. Yep. But back where I kind of cut you off there, we were talking about expanding past the 1 HQ and 2 troop. I'll let you continue on that.
Oh yes. So expanding. So this is where playtesting will come in effect. You know, what I find I like to do, and I actually do this across different games in general, is if I'm new into the game, or if I'm new into the army, I try to take a mixture of a lot of different units to see how they do in the army, right? So anybody who's jumping into Heresy and just getting the feel for it, definitely try tons of different units. Try some tanks, try some flyers, some elites, some artillery, you know, Terminators, drop pods, all that stuff that's in Heresy, right? You know, super heavies if you want later down the road. You also have Primarchs, which are a whole other aspect. But try it out. See what you like. See where you want to go. And then what you'll end up finding is, for whatever army you decide to play, you're going to see what units fit best with that army.
Yeah.
Right?
And play style, right?
Exactly. Because like each legion, because, you know, the Astartes legions, each legion has their own set of rules. And of course, I'm not going to go into the specifics of each of them, but each of them have specific different rules, and you'll see what units will do better with those legions, right?
Yeah.
And then sometimes those legion rules will actually change little things in those units. So, but yeah, as for units, try things out. Try, speeders. Try jet bikes.
Yeah.
Myself, I'm infamous for always having, quad mortars in my armies. Right? They're effective. I like the unit. They can be tough as nails sometimes, right? Just having a high toughness because they are artillery. But they're super, super effective in my Ultramarines army, for example. And it's always there. It's always one of those units there. So you're going to find units like that you're going to like. Maybe you like veterans.
Yeah.
Maybe you like destroyers or seekers. Oh, javelins. That's another one, So, what about you, Bill? What do you think about that? Like,
I definitely like to spread the love around. I take a little bit of a different approach. Just when I'm first, I remember when I first was kind of starting, I kind of started looking at ground game because I wanted to kind of master one spot at a time, and I gravitated towards Terminators and Dreadnoughts. I thought they were a nice thing to take after I got comfortable, because there's so many different kinds of Dreadnoughts, guys. Like, you've got your regular box knots, your Mortis box knots, and then Contemptors, then Contemptor Mortis, the Derridio, Leviathans. There's a lot of variety, and playtest them all. See which ones you like. There's even Horus Contemptors, which are kind of ramshackly style Contemptors held together, but they're really good for close combat. They're really good for getting in to the enemy lines and just causing havoc. And they're cheaper than regular Contemptors. So,
and not to mention, you could take them in Talon.
Yep,
a few of them, right? So,
yeah,
3 for 1 choice, pretty much.
Exactly. But yeah, sound advice from Andy. Definitely expand on everything that you can. I also am a big fan of quad motors, aka thud guns. Even taking 1 or 2 of them, you'll see they put in a lot of work. They're really good. The heavy bolter rapiers, all the different style, the grav and the just laser destroyer rapiers. Every different unit has its own role, and when you're going through and actually building your list, this is kind of where the fun starts, because you want to build a list to supply you with enough scoring, supply you with enough anti-armor and enough anti-air.
Yeah.
You want to also keep in mind you want to have a assault unit or a counter assault unit, depending on how you want to build your force. And it comes down to what legion you want to play, because there are some legions that will really support your playstyle, be it shooting heavy or combat heavy or a mix of both. There are legions that excel at all these different areas. Some are jack of all trades, and they're all around really good, like Space Wolves, for instance. Whereas shooting, Iron Warriors, Imperial Fists tend to lean that way. Combat heavy would be your World Eaters, obviously. Yeah. Even Iron Hands can have some nasty combos as well, just because they're so resistant to shooting. That's kind of where they want to be. It's just there's a lot of different ways to build your armies and take into consideration, but I feel that the best points level would be probably, I'd say, 1500 to get a good feel of stuff. It's not enough to take everything, but you also don't want to get overwhelmed as a newer player and have a 5-hour game and it burns you out. 1,500 points are small enough that your first couple games, it'll probably take you 2.5 hours to kind of bang through, but it gets quicker from there, and it lets you take enough stuff where you can kind of, experiment with different combos.
Well, once you, at that point level, it allows you to experience a little bit more than just the basics, right? So, and the best thing about that is, like you said, the games won't be super, super long, but you'll start to encounter those, universal special rules and what unit does what, I've never encountered this kind of dreadnought before. You know what I mean? So once you start having those games and you start experiencing, you start actually seeing what these other units do, now you start formulating, ideas of, maybe I can use that in my list.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then that's when you start, as I'm doing the air quotes, tinkering, of your armies, right? Like, I don't know, the last couple months, just ideas on lists have been bouncing back and forth, especially with some of the newer guys coming into it. Brady is one of them, where he's just continuously sending us army lists and stuff, right? And what do you think?
Yep.
So, which is awesome, because the excitement's there. It's like we're back to where we were when we started, and we're giving each other advice and talking about units, and just trying to help the guy out too. So it's awesome, and I'm very happy to see that, and I actually do appreciate it as well. I know Bill does too, when you're getting that kind of reaction from new players, because that hype is there, right? So
definitely,
it's awesome.
It does help quite a bit, and like myself, I really like doing the list building and tinkering through. Mentioned a couple episodes back, but like that's my wheelhouse. That's what I do. Like, show me a 2,000, 2,500, whatever point army you have, and then tell me, hey, I really want to fit this into it, and I will get it in that army. Trust me, and I won't gut your army to do it. It's just, I love doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's all, you're always shifting points and stuff, right?
Yeah, to find that balance of just everything works, right?
And that's actually kind of a good thing to talk about there too. Is when you're making lists out there for the new players, make a few of them.
Yeah.
Like make 2 or 3 of them, and then when you do go to play, try one out and play it, and then stick with that one for a couple matches and see if you like it. If not, switch to your other one, right? Or you can just switch back and forth and just kind of see where you're sitting at for that. Try different units in each of these lists, and it's a good way of really finding, okay, you know what? I don't really care for these dreadnoughts. I'd rather have these heavy support units, because my army is fitted towards a lot of pinpoint shooting, right? Target priority shooting kind of thing, and I get bonuses. I get to reroll wounds or armor penetration rolls because of that, right? So definitely do that. Definitely make a few lists, run them, tinker and change things up a little bit on each of them, and how you see fit. And then just try those units, and if you can, if you are part of a local community, definitely bounce ideas off of each other.
100%.
Right? You could even reach out to any of us, and there's a lot of players out there. There's a huge worldwide community for Heresy. Guys love talking about that stuff.
Yeah.
And any questions, ask away, right? So
I think that's something that a lot of veteran players really do look forward to, is that opportunity to share their knowledge, especially on some of the Facebook pages. Some of them are quite robust and very active, and like a constant steady stream of actual like usable advice. You know, sometimes I know on Facebook you'll see a couple of the, you know, snarky comments of like, well, it should be in your book. Cool, man, we get it. But for the most part, a lot of guys will explain stuff to you and actually walk you through like where you need to be. It's a big part of it. And again, this goes back to what we've mentioned before in the past as well, is be the example. Be the kind of player you want to attract, especially as a veteran player, right? Be the player that you wish was around when you first started, when we're helping these newer players, because it goes a long way. They hit the learning curve a lot quicker. They get to kind of test and figure out stuff, and there's a lot of satisfaction in watching people come in brand new, and within a couple months they're right up there running with the pack, you know what I mean? And actually becoming quite, you know, formidable on the tabletop. So
well, be the player you want to see, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and you know, it's right there. It's right there. When you have 2, 3, 4 new people jumping into a community, like take advantage of that and like jump right in there and just have a good time with it. You know, help the guys out, chit chat with each other, and just tinker away, man. You know, lists, armies, all that stuff, and you'll find that community, that portion of the player interaction with each other will be a lot better, and then you'll find that your games, I'm pretty sure, because I've seen it a lot, you'll find that your games will be a lot better too.
Yeah,
because now you're sharing that info with each other, and kind of, you know, we kind of feed off of each other, right? So making those lists with the help of others, and then coming up with your own, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I've only got 5 games in, but I finally won my first game against this veteran player.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
it's
huge. Gets excited, right? It's huge, right?
And the nice thing too, you know, between, not even for beginners, but for veteran players too, like even, you know, when you're playing some top tier guys, get into the habit early of explaining what you're doing, what the intent is of what you're doing. It'll save a lot of like arguments and issues down the road, and it'll help you and your opponent learn quicker as well if they're new, right? Like, oh, okay, my squad of tactical marines, I'm gonna rapid fire. Yeah, I need 4s and 4s. Wow, for a new player, that's a lot of stuff to take in, right? Like, especially if they're new to the system. So, you know, there's better ways to explain it. Like, okay, my tactical marines, I'm going to rapid fire. I got 10 guys, 2 shots each, 20 shots. I'm looking for 3s because I got ballistic skill 4. And then, you know, you're rolling dice, but you're narrating as you're going. And I'm strength 4 with my bolt gun, your toughness 4, so I'm looking for 4s. This way, he's following along as he's listening, and he's watching you roll your dice. It becomes a pattern, right? You start to kind of learn that to hit into wound grid, that little chart. And once you kind of got that on lockdown, it gets pretty easy from there, and the games get really fast. But, you know, if you're getting to that habit, okay, I'm going to actually move my dreadnought 6 inches this way, but I'm going to turn them so my front is facing your heavy bolters and not my back, right? Like, or not my side. And you're being very, or your missile launchers, let's say, because heavy bolters are kind of meh on the side. But you're declaring your intent, and then your opponent's like, okay, sure, right? So you know, at least, yes, I'm in the front arc, and it's going to be harder for you to get me. And just going like that, like, I know I first kind of caught wind of players doing that when it was LVO. This is 2018 when I went, and there was a guy, Cooper, who that's how he plays. Everything he's doing, he's actually talking about as he's doing it, and saying, okay, hey, I'm going to move up here in the assault phase. We're going to measure. I'm going to need like a 9-inch charge. You agree? And you look, yeah, I agree. Perfect. Because now come assault phase, he's just rolling dice. Okay, yeah, need that 9. And you've both agreed. Like, it makes the game go so much smoother. So try and get into that habit as much as you can. and it does take a little bit of what's the word I'm looking for, effort in the beginning, but it does go a long way. It helps a lot.
Yeah, because I know we've incorporated it into our games and our gaming group, and like it doesn't happen all the time, but you know, when it does happen, it's very clear.
Yep.
Right. And I know myself, there's some days where I'm doing it, and then there's some days I'm catching myself not doing it, and I'm like, oh man, like if I measure this out and we're humming and hawing about it, well, you know, it takes time. But yeah, definitely it's a good practice for sure. And especially and some advice for the new guys, especially if you're going to any kind of event or tournaments.
Yeah.
Right? Because remember, a lot of times you have a time limit in your game. So if things are clear and there's no fumbling around for, oh no, you're more of this many inches away than that, you're saving time for your match and you're just gonna go, right? So
yeah,
definitely good practice. And it definitely teaches players to different things. You know, maybe some newer players aren't aware of certain rules, right? I know in close combat there was a little bit of confusion about initiative and when weapons strike, you know, in the past, right? And it's like, no, you know, so it's a matter of interpretation and, of course, just people talking, you know, about clarification on certain rules and whatnot too, right? So
yeah, and to go into depth into that a little bit more, there's things like, okay, so my character has initiative 5 and I'm using an unwieldy weapon, but I have a bonus that gives me +1 initiative. Do I get to strike in initiative 2? It's like, well, no, unwieldy actually makes you strike in initiative 1 all the time, no matter what.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, okay, because that kind of foiled the guy's plan. He had a certain plan. Oh, I'll challenge, I'll go first. I should be able to kill this guy and I won't get hit back. And sound plan, right? If it works. So it's little things like that. But the more you talk about it with your opponent, the better things will get. And that's the thing. Is we basically talking about this. We want to just really go over the importance of play testing, getting those games in, familiarizing yourself with the universal special rules because they do pop up quite a bit. As well as the actual, mechanics of the game. When we're talking, we're assuming that you guys have a loose knowledge of it at least, and you're just trying to roll dice and start kind of expanding it on army. So, my personal picks, if I was going to be talking about, okay, so you're just jumping in, I would probably be rocking out a Centurion, and I'd probably make him either a Siegebreaker or a Chaplain. One of the two. Siegebreaker is going to unlock a couple different things for you. You're going to get access to Phosphics, where if you're any other Legion but Salamanders, you will greatly enjoy throwing down green fire. And as we laugh about, there's the Salamanders are they're timid. They don't want to commit war crimes in the 31st millennium, and the rest of us, we can. So that's always nice. Siegebreakers can back and support a heavy support squad as well, granting you Tank Hunter, which is huge. But if you're not wanting to do the shooting game, that's where a Chaplain will really assist, because now you're getting rerolls to hit in combat for your first round, which is very nice. I think troops, it's always nice to have a mix just to really get a feel of what you like. Lately, I've been loving my Assault Marines, so I'd recommend an Assault Marine squad and a Tactical squad, and really experiment with them and try and take, I would probably try and bump them up to 15-man squads personally, because they'll have some staying power. This is just not Legion specific either, because again, certain Legions are going to do these builds differently, and they have different bonuses. So this is just strictly generic, no Legions in thought process yet. And then from there, Dreadnought, Terminators. Would give you a pretty solid force that's close to 1,500. I would say you'd probably have enough points where you could maybe take a second character. Maybe. And if you really wanted to cheap out on some stuff, you could probably run either a fast attack saber tank or something small, just a regular Karen or something. But then looking at this list, there's a mix. You've got infantry, you've got a walker, you've got some jump infantry, you've got a vehicle that, there's a lot of different rule interactions, and it's nice I like to build it up baby steps and work ground game. And if you really got comfortable with that particular ground game and now you want to play around with more mobility, now you can start looking at, different units like skimmers or bikes or jet bikes or flyers, and then really kind of master the air after you're done working on ground, and then you can start to experiment with both. That's my personal opinion. I that's how I like to tinker my lists. I really start ground game first and try and really work through what these units can do. So, yourself, Mr. Monty?
Myself, well, going with some HQs, one that really tends to make a way in my armies most of the time is the Master of Signal.
Oh yeah.
I find, even though he is a support HQ unit, an HQ character, he's got a couple things going for him. He has a Cognis Signum, which allows him to give +1 to the ballista skill of a unit. So that's a big bonus for me a lot of times, especially when I'm playing my Ultramarines, because I tend to stick him with the quad mortars. So I'm hitting on 2, right? So big benefit with that. He also has his own bombardment, which can be anywhere from 1 orbital bombardment to 3. And, a lot of times that can actually devastate large units that are out there. I try to use them to target units that have, AP or armor of 3+, or lighter vehicles that I'm able to just smash through with the strength 8 of the weapon. So it's definitely cheap enough to throw in there as a support unit. He's not a combat guy, so don't think he's going to go out there and start taking names with his chainsword or his combat knife. But he's pretty good for that. He's got a Nuncio Vox as well. Ultimately, if he's that far up the front line when you're trying to deep strike stuff down, cool. But it's not one that I use too often. Mainly for the other 2 abilities. And of course, he's a Centurion level character, right? So he does have the ability to fight a little bit better, but ultimately a support unit. There's also the... I don't really use too many others, even though I should probably in these new armies. I find there's times where the Herald comes up, and usually I play him as a loyalist because that's usually what I play. But the Banner of the Aquila, it's a good little ability of, give around 12 inches. The Astartes units around him get +1 weapon skills. So, if you got Terminators that he's running with, more than likely they're going to be hitting on 3s now. And he gives that little fun bonus to the units. He is also another support officer, but the only thing with him too is he's if you lose him, you I think give point away to the opponent, so an additional victory point. So that's something you got to watch. But otherwise, for close combat units, I'll use them for that. Going on to Other units, quad mortars, of course, like I mentioned earlier, or thud guns. They're a solid choice. They got different ammo types. I like taking shatter shells. You'll take out vehicles pretty much with them. So they're I believe Sunder is their rule.
Yeah,
and they let them re-roll pretty much, right? So they're fun to have. High strength. You can switch them out to using the small blasts if you really want to nail a whole bunch of guys, or if it's actually
large blast now. Yeah,
large blast now. Yeah,
experimental FAQ.
That's right. I forgot about that.
But still, small blast for Phosphix rounds, right? Which is kind of weird, but yeah.
Yeah, well, that's probably the way to go now, anyways. But they're pretty good. Javelins, javelin speeders. They're pretty good for points, and then on top of that, I like taking them, of course, with the cyclone missiles, and usually a multi-melta, and they outflank, right? And they get out on the sides, or they get up behind enemy units, and they just start laying down some firepower. And then, of course, hunter killer missiles on them as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the nice thing about them is, strength 8, AP 3 on the missiles, they're twin linked. And then your multi melt is, the one shot strength 8, AP 1 melta. Even though you're mainly probably going to try to get the backs of tanks and stuff like that, if those targets aren't out there, they just rip into tactical units.
Yeah, they do.
When you have multiple of them, they just start taking kills, right? And then eventually, next you know, it's like your opponent's tactical unit that was holding an objective is no longer there. So, definitely a great unit. They're good for their cost, and ultimately, you have. I mean, there's an abundance of units, but one thing I do kind of want to mention too, and these are a lot of generic Astartes and vehicle units that we're talking about. When you are going out there and playing and play testing, one thing I want to mention is the legions. When you start getting into the legion specific rules and whatnot, even though a lot of times we have our favorite legion that we want to play, sometimes the rules in the game might not be your style, right? So definitely try it out and definitely play test it before you commit. Because I've done it in the past where I've tried a legion out. I remember when we were first starting, I was trying 3 of the different legions, and I think it was World Eaters, Word Bearers. I think it was Sons of Horus as well that I was trying, and I thought for sure I was going to go Word Bearers, but then I ended up going World Eaters, right? So try them out. Try their specific units out as well. You may like them, you may not. But it's just some advice. Just check it out. See if the rules are kind of fitting to how you want to play, how your play style is, or maybe you got to find that play style.
Yeah, true. Very true. That might be
pretty good for that, I think.
Yeah,
I think
that might be something we look at in a everything you need to know part 3, where we start actually building. Maybe actually start going through lists and maybe talking legions and where they lean on the spectrum of shooting, combat, or jack of all trades, and what things to look for and consider depending on what units you like and what units actually get benefit from these legion rules as well. So
for sure. No, it's always good because there's so many different things that we can talk about for Heresy with the legions.
Oh yeah, 100%. And also any questions, if you guys ever have questions of anything you've heard, or you just kind of brainstorming and you're like, hey, I wonder how this works, fire us a PM, DM,
hit us up,
email, whatever you want. Yeah, we're more than happy to. Yeah, more than happy to answer your questions and go through. Even if you want us to take a look at lists or just anything really, like we're totally down. And there's a lot of experience here. Like I know there's a pretty big team of us. There's about a solid probably 8 to 10 guys that talk very frequently. And it doesn't take long to bounce ideas off each other and think tank some lists, and it works out pretty good. Like, and we'll definitely be getting more some of the other guys on here as well to talk to us about armies and units, legions, getting the most out of certain legions that they play. So you'll get first-hand player experience as well.
Oh, 100%. And like, we as a community, we have a fair bit of guys who play Heresy, but they play a fair bit of different legions and or other armies for Heresy, because we haven't even touched that, which will be at a later date. But we have a lot of experience. We've encountered a lot of different armies and just kind of play styles. So yeah, feel free, hit us up, send those messages, check us out, email, all that stuff.
Yep.
Good time. That.
Definitely. I think we'll wrap it up at this particular point, but definitely thank you for tuning in. Thank you for, getting through the video. Look out for part 3. It'll come soon, because we definitely want to help as many people as we can. And definitely, like we say in Trident, build it, paint it, play it, and we'll catch you next time.
See you guys.